we've arrived at an expression of the fraction of living material in this tree trunk as a function of the current radius of the trunk. Now let's see how it changes as the trunk grows at a constant rate A, where the thickness of living material stays constant, and where moreover we'll look at the instant that the radius is, let's say, 5 times the thickness of the living part. All right, so to compute the derivative, let's write down a quotient rule and use a chain rule. The 1 makes no contribution, and I'll put the minus sign out front. The derivative of the top will be 2 times r minus d multiplied by dr dt from the chain rule and multiplied by the denominator. Now from that we must subtract the derivative of the denominator, which is 2 times r, and multiplied by dr dt, again by the chain rule, and then multiplied by the numerator. Finally, we divide by the square of the denominator, which puts an r to the 4th down here. Now, before we start expanding this, it's important to note that this minus sign applies to the whole expression. Now, we can do one of 2 things. We can plug in the information right now, or we can tidy up a little bit and then plug in the information. It's up to you which one of these options you prefer. We can take out some common factors. Let's do it this way. We'll keep the minus sign out here, and we'll take out some of the factors that are in common. So for instance, we can take out a 2 from each of these expressions, and r, a dr dt, and we can even take one factor of r minus d out of everything. We can take out a factor of r to the 4th, and that allows us to do a cancellation and leave an r cubed here. And now let's see what's left over on the inside. So here the only thing that's left over is one factor of r that didn't make it to the collection of terms out here. And here what's left over is one factor of this term. Notice that this sign remains a minus sign, and so here we have r minus d as follows. Now that we've written it this way, it's easy to plug in all the information. And so what we obtain is 2 times the r dt here. That's a according to our information. Down here, r cubed at this instant is 5d all cubed, which is d cubed times 125. R minus d here is 5d minus d, which is 4 times d. And in here, the r's are going to cancel, and we'll be left with one factor of d. So all in all, combining the constants up on top, we'll have 8. There'll be an a up here. Then there'll be a d squared, which will cancel out with the d cubed down below to leave us 125d, and of course, that all-important minus sign. And so altogether, we found that the fraction of the living part of the tree evolves and changes with time at this rate. First of all, we see that it decreases because of this minus sign. So we see that that fraction gets smaller and smaller as the trunk expands. And we see that it also depends on the thickness as well as on the rate at which that radius is growing.